Story 1. The cry from the cold room to 17 a.m. in the rain. The temp alarm in the basement chirped for short beeps and died. The corridor was empty, carrying a faint funerally sweetness over the damp old building stink. I was the night guard. The place was quiet as a grave, except the morgue downstairs was a real one. The stairs to the morgue were so black my flashlight felt swallowed whole. My palm left a greasy streak along the rail. At the concrete floor, the long, low hum of the coolers blended with rain hammering a floor drain. I listened. Click, a tiny touch on metal that traveled forever. Click again. The drawers stood in a clean line. My beam slid over scratched steel. At drawer 4 I stopped. The faceplate sat open a sliver thin as a thumbnail. I remembered checking every latch on my last pass. Air pressure, I told myself, stepping in. The lily stink got syrup sweet, enough to gag. Click. The third time. I was right up on the slit. Inside, a breath of freezer air exhaled like something alive. A dry, metal-scraped whisper came from the seam. Cold, 2 pale fingers tipped with purpled nails crept out, veins showing through thin skin. Scratching the lip of steel with a little screech. Click the fourth. I yanked my hand off the handle like I'd touched a burner. Something in my head started counting with it, each click spaced by the rain. I took one slow step back, then another, eyes locked on that open wound of a gap. The drawer glided on its rails all the way out and stopped. I didn't look inside. I ran. The stairs went on forever. From below, fingernails dragged a line across concrete, a woman sobbing through her teeth. Cold. I shouldered the door and sprinted the hall. Something skittered to my boot-to-toe tag on a wet cloth tie. Old ink blurred, but one word still read and mean: unclaimed. I didn't stop. In the guardroom I grabbed the radio and sank into the chair. A gust of lily moved past me like someone had walked by. The wall time clock ticked. Then the minute hand jumped for notches and jammed. Go back down there. No, I sat it out till shift end, bracing my leg against the desk to keep it from shaking. On my way out, I noticed an ancient yellow tape tab stuck to the morgue door. Ballpoint half faded for Max, close, tight, moldy, torn. A warning nobody read. Next night, still raining. I opened my locker for the poncho. The door sat cracked just a hair, same as the drawer. Uniform hanging neat. That same lily breath rolled out. On the fourth hook, a little cloth tie hung with a tag. The word in red hadn't changed. Unclaimed. Only the date had a night. Embedded rule. On rainy nights, if drawer 4 opens a hair, you've got 4 minutes to seal it. Leave it. Something swaps your things around and tags one of yours. Unclaimed. Story 2. The Lullaby of the Loom. 2:37 a.m. Loom 7 sang a lullaby with no breath behind it. The mill floor was empty. Rows of dark machines lay like sleeping animals. I killed the shop vac and the tune slid between beams and belts, fine as thread, tugging the ear. I followed it with a damp mop handle in my fist and sweat slicking my palm. There'd been soft flags all week. Every time I finished sweeping, I'd still find one spool lying in the aisle. I'd shove it back into the tray and never remember which slot it belonged in. Close enough was good enough. Tonight, a single spool waited right at the toe of Loom 7. The lullaby looped back. Close enough that I could hear the little edges of the singer's teeth. I crouched and cut the flashlight under the belly of the machine. The beam flicked across 2 small bare feet swinging, skin white blue, ankles dusted with old mud. The loom kicked alive. Gears screamed. The shuttle shot and hammered. Whack, 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 ripping the quiet in strips. The lullaby broke into a needle-thin child's scream that braided into the machine's rhythm. I went over backward, mop skidding, the head smacking the ratchet wheel. I crab-walked and felt something thin and mean kiss my ankle. Looking down, a red thread had looped 2 turns around my left ankle, the other end snaking under the machine and sinking into the dark like it was being reeled in. I slashed at it with a box cutter. The thread snapped up, leaving a red groove in my skin. The loom kept roaring. I hopped up and ran, clutching my ankle. Air in the shop felt like draft off a water tank. At the steel door, the line yanked once. Tight, I yanked back, ripped the door open and stumbled into the yard. The loom cut dead behind me like someone pulled the main. The lullaby died with it stuck on the open. By the gate I bent to peel the thread off my ankle. It wouldn't fall. It was fine and stubborn like it had grown from my skin. I had to cut it 3 more times to free it, and even then a thin piece stayed fused there, no matter how I picked. Morning, I turned in my badge. Passing 7 I stopped. The gears were silent. Under the frame sat a doll's head missing its eyes, furred with lint, and a torn safety sheet pinned with a rusty needle. Children present on floor. The middle was gone. On the control table, a chalk smeared tray marked in a shaky hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The spool I shoved last night sat in the wrong lane 5. I didn't touch it. At the sink I ran water over the red welt on my ankle. The water was cold. It didn't wash clean. In the hush of the pipes, a voice whispered from far away, "Put it back right for me, and mommy will come." I left the mill. On the road, the little nub of red thread still bit once, just once, enough to throw off my 7th step. Embedded rule: the dropped spool is bait. Put it back in the wrong slot on 7. The loom wakes. The red thread finds your ankle and keeps tugging till you set it right. Story 3. The face behind the velvet curtain. The spotlight snapped on by itself and pinned me dead center. Everything else had cut out: the house lights, the dressing rooms, even the exit signs. I was rolling the shop vac onto the deck when a needle of white drilled my crown. Dust motes lit up into a faint chalk ring around my shoes. Behind me, the red velvet breathed. This old place is gorgeous in a way that gives you the creeps. Red seats, tarnished gold rail, a dressing room mirror filmed with powder, a dried white rose in a cracked bud vase. I'd seen all that 100 nights. I'd never had the light choose me like tonight. The curtain bulged in the middle, like a face pressed from the other side. Fabric bending into a shallow bowl. A white face pushed out of the velvet, smooth and wrong. No eyes, no nose, just a grin split to the ears. Black hair pouring from the edges in snarls. It didn't move, but I could feel it looking out of those empty spaces. The air tasted like old powder and lipstick metal. I backed up and tangled a cable. The spot flickered and came back. In that blink, the space between us shrunk one step. I noticed the chalk dust circle under me had a faint arc scratched into it, like someone had spiked the mark before. On stage, folk chart their marks with tape and chalk. Here, somebody wanted me exactly here. I remembered a superstition the crew had muttered. Step into the center mark and Dante returned the bow, and the spot doesn't forgive. Cute, except that smile wasn't joking. The light blinked again. It closed another step, not walking, just nearer in the light, like the empty space folded. My shout kicked echoes off the ceiling like an invisible audience. "Who's there?" Nothing answered, just the swish of velvet on rope. I set my hand on the chalk ring and felt the heat of the lamp on my neck. I bowed, not polite, just low enough to scoop the fallen mic base. The spot snuffed. The house fell thick and black. In it, a woman's voice slipped between her teeth, "Give me back my part." The stage left crash door blew open. Night air slapped my face. I scrambled that way and my fingers brushed something cold and dry hanging in the fly lines, an old loop of rope. In the hallway, I leaned on the wall, breathing hard. The spot came back up behind me. I knew, because the beam knifed through the door seam. Through the crack I saw her, a white figure under the circle, giving a slow, deliberate bow. On the floor, 2 chalk footprints showed in the ring. Not mine, pointed toes, narrow, high heel. I left without looking again. At the threshold, something dropped off the border and landed by my shoe, a curled old playbill streaked with lipstick. The lead's name was slashed out in red. On the cast list, chalked by hand at the bottom, one word: encore. In the guard office, I washed my face and glanced at the mirror. Somewhere along the way, a dried white rose had been pinned to my shirt pocket. The pin's head was dusted with chalk. Embedded rule: step into the chalk ring and the spot will find you. Every time you don't return the bow, the gap closes one step. Leave the stage and she'll pin a prop to you.